The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hi, my name is Leo Connors, and welcome to The Ring and All Other Sports. And tonight, my guest returning for the 167th time, Proving Grounds, Todd Graham.
This many. I've been on the show
Good to see you,
this
man.
many times.
Nice to see you. Thank you again for coming on.
I figured I had a show, so I'd come out here and
Absolutely.
And shill.
Well, as you can see, guys, if you can see this right now, this beautiful poster. Todd's got an upcoming show. It's Saturday, March 19th. Proving Grounds Super Fight, Montero versus Leader 2. Knights of Columbus, Peabody, bingo?
That's their page.
Okay.
Which you know, I can't tell you how excited I am to be like, yeah, I do shows in a bingo hall.
Bingo. Right?
Like,
and that's at 96 Main Street, Peabody, Mass. 01960 is the zip code. You can get your tickets by going to provinggroundstore.com.
right.
So, Sean Leader won the North Shore Rumble.
Yes.
And now moves on to face the three-time Proving Ground champion, the ace, Mike Montero.
That's right.
And is he like, he also has a nickname, the Dirt City?
He's the Dirt City Don.
Oh.
He's the Last Dragon. He's the Gatekeeper. He's the Ace. We don't have enough time to go through it, but he's Mike Montero for sure.
I just saw him for the first time, and I told you off it was awesome. The kid's very talented.
Yeah,
Very talented.
you saw him against Ricky Medeiros.
His tag team partner, sometimes tag team partner.
Well, yes. Ricky Medeiros is also a former Proving Ground heavyweight champion himself.
Right.
The first person to dethrone Mike Montero.
Whoa!
In honestly, it's one of those. It was one of those matches we did during the pandemic era, and we did it during the pandemic era, and we did it in basically a storage locker in Gloucester, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And it's just like, atmosphere makes everything sometimes.
Absolutely.
And those two guys had the atmosphere of, okay, it felt like a Fight Club feel with all the wrestlers acting as the audience because they wanted to see it, and just the way it went down. It was one of those match of the year contenders for us anyway. And Ricky Medeiros, a lot of people talk about Mike Montero. Not a lot of people talk about Ricky Medeiros.
Right.
He is one or two big matches away from really breaking out.
There's no doubt. I was very impressed with Ricky Medeiros in that match.
And he's the one who's going to be wrestling Anthony Green on March 19th, too. So
nice. Well, we're going to get to that. So now they haven't faced each other in 4 years in Proving Ground.
Correct. Our very first live show, Level 1, back in May of 2018. They were our main event. And in a rare occasion, Sean Leader defeated Mike Montero. And we have never run that match back.
Wow.
Not since. It was always one of those things where it's like we always knew it would be good.
Yep.
And if we ever found ourselves in a situation where we needed a hot main event, we'd put them together.
Right.
And then the ball just kept rolling and things kept going upwards. And we just, Montero went on to do some things. Sean Leader went on to do other things. And their paths just haven't crossed again until now.
Nice.
So.
Excellent. Now, the stakes are higher than ever, right? And Montero has not avenged his loss. This is going to be a great show. And also, you got the debut of Riot Kellen Thomas.
That's right, Riot Kellen Thomas.
And the return of Anthony Green.
I like the word return because that means he's been with us before.
Right.
So
not even that long ago.
No,
before he got signed, just before he got signed,
that's right.
Did one of your shows.
In fact, Sean Leader beat Mike Montero at level 1 and then would move on to beat Anthony Green at level 2.
Wow.
So, in the event Anthony Green sticks around with us for a little while, I think I'd like to run that back too.
Nice.
So, who knows?
Right. And and Sean's great work, but almost anybody you put AG in the ring with, it's going to end up being a good match. AG is that good.
What is the thing that he keeps saying? He is the best thing in wrestling.
Yeah.
Very alliterative, and and in the Proving Ground, he'll always have an opportunity to prove it.
Right.
So we'll see on the 19th. And Anthony Green is going to be doing an in-store appearance at Nick's Comic Strip in Danvers.
Okay.
He'll be doing that from 12 to 2:30. Haven't formally announced this next thing yet, but I will now, I guess.
Yeah.
He'll be coming from the comic book shop back to the building to host a seminar.
Oh, nice.
You got to talk about a guy with a lot of information, especially once again was spent just a little under a year in the WWE, basically holding up the 205 brand. And
No doubt.
And you can see him occasionally on AEW because he's still out in Florida, so he's still convenient. To the Florida promotions, and he winds up at AEW more often than not. So,
Right. Well, I said off air, man, I'm surprised he's just not signed by them, honestly. Why would you wait? That guy is just so talented.
Oh,
I mean, granted, we know him and he's a homegrown guy, so he might be a little biased.
Of course.
But the bottom line is he really does. It's not, if other people are saying it, I'm sure too.
But it's not just in the ring. Anthony Green, I could throw a rock into a locker room and find a great worker.
Right.
Maybe even, maybe that might be overselling it. A good worker.
Okay.
Someone who could do a great job. Anthony Green, great in the ring.
Right.
Where he excels the most is outside of it.
Nice. Elaborate on that.
He's the kind of guy that I was going to say, if he decided to run a wrestling promotion, well, he did.
Yeah, he did. And can I just say one thing? He was successful at it, pretty, for starting it up.
Right.
And
he got the 0-1 license.
Yeah, and I went back to selling my merchandise at his shows only because I knew that he'd have no less than 150 people at every show, and he did.
No doubt.
Every show was over 150 people.
He is a marketing genius.
Yep.
We'll probably talk about this later, but, I also do, I've come on here with the action figures.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the action figures, cards, everything.
But the thing is he knew he was going on the Major Wrestling Figure podcast in Florida. He knew he was going to be there, and he says, hey, can you rush like 25 figures? I said, sure. Sent him 25 figures just in time, brings him to the podcast, sells out that night.
That's awesome.
And it's just like, okay, you want to talk about as a creative person, whenever you make something, if there's no deadline, you never feel like it's done.
Right.
It's like looking at a painting and you're just like, something about it ain't finished, and then you take like and you're like, oh, it's done. It's the smallest little thing.
Right.
If creative people didn't have time frames to live up to, then you're talking about stuff would never get released.
Yeah.
Because, so in that respect, like I never look at anything I create as anything special.
Okay.
But it has just blown up.
Dude, they're so good. Honestly, they look great.
The figures, the trading cards, it just blew up. So, and I have Anthony Green to thank for a lot of that.
Right.
So.
And real quick, you do have them in sets. In the first set is Dick Lane, Derek Simonetti,
Yep.
Tom Billington, and Sean Lita.
That's the second set.
So that's the second set?
That's the second set.
I'm sorry. All right.
They're supposed to be coming out. Shipping was supposed to start this month. It's probably going to get pushed back till April. But we want to make sure that we're doing it right.
Right. And it's $30 for each one. You can buy all four for $100, which is a great deal. So the first series then was Mike Montero, Timmy Kilgore, Derek Conway, and Joey Warner.
Correct. Yeah.
I actually got to talk to Derek and Tim at the show Friday night, which we'll talk a little bit about that after.
Sure.
So that's probably the best way if you guys want to buy them would be to buy all four of them.
That's
buy the sets.
Actually, we only released a couple of sets.
Oh, really?
It was one of those. It was one of those. You'll get a break on the money if you order it right away, and they did. I'm pretty sure they sold out.
Okay.
But if you want to buy them, they're at www.provinggroundstore.com.
Yes, and I'm telling you guys, if you haven't seen them, look at them. Go look at them. I'm telling you, you're gonna want them. They're awesome. Now we'll get to this past Friday night. You also do commentary for Northeast Championship Wrestling, which actually I went to my very first show.
Yeah.
And what a great show.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was great seeing you there, helping out, being an asset, as Joey Eastman said today on Facebook.
Yeah.
That it's
That's
nice.
That's high praise.
That's huge praise
I take that.
from a guy that we all respect. Oh, wait a minute. He looks a lot like him, but it's not really him.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's Sidney Bacabella.
That's Sidney Bacabella. He was on here, and Dick don't like him. I'm trying to get him back on, but Dick's like, nope. Yeah, I have to pay him $100 to let excuse me, that was
Just 100. He's being nice to you.
Yeah, I just swore. Almost swore.
Oh.
Sorry, Dick. No, but really, though, it was great seeing that you're helping. You know what I mean? You have your own company. To see you doing commentary and helping these guys out was great to see. Not enough people from companies do that and help other companies.
I have this belief that I'm beginning to scare the young students.
Okay.
Because New England Pro Wrestling Academy, they have a handful of students that go all over the place, whether they're booked or not. Just to
And
kind
a
of
few were booked.
Right, exactly. So you got guys like Randy Rivera, Gal Barkai, the Israeli superstar, who I just did cards for, by the way. So keep an eye out for them. But like
Adam, the little Adam that was there. I forget his last name. Adam. He was in the 10-way match.
I believe.
The 10-man match.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he is from Bo's school.
Oh, okay. Yes, you're right. He is from Bose.
But a student nonetheless.
Right.
So, but I think I'm beginning to scare these people because there was one weekend of shows where it was like Friday night, they saw me at NCW.
Yeah.
And then Saturday night, they saw me at Limitless. Because I do production for Limitless sometimes. I loosely do production for Limitless. I look at their wide camera and make sure it's still on.
There you go. Yeah, you help Randy out.
Yes.
Smart kid, by the way.
Oh my God!
Smart kid.
You want to talk about first? You know what? I'm just going to say this, and it shouldn't garner me any heat. But in my opinion, Limitless Wrestling is the #1 wrestling company in New England.
I'm gonna have to tell you, I think you're right. Honestly, I think you're right. Right now, listen, coming out of the pandemic, it was wide open for anyone to become.
Oh yeah.
And
I said that. What I said about the pandemic, I don't know if I said it on this show or just amongst friends, but. There were, because I work for, NRG, RWA, NCW, Limitless Wrestling, Proving Ground, whatever. Chad Epic, whenever he runs stuff, I'm always a part of that.
Yep.
And we can get to that later, I'm sure. But, I kind of diversify. I've kind of spread myself really thin. But I love the experience. It was always a plan of mine to... prepare for the post-wrestling career.
Yeah.
And then it happened a lot sooner than I thought it would.
Right.
But, commentary and production and all that stuff. So what I was saying was there were some people, and I forget who, that were concerned about coming back from the pandemic. Not because of the health guidelines and the restrictions and all that stuff. They were more concerned with, everybody's going to come back refreshed and better than ever. And I don't think we're going to be able to survive in that landscape. And I said, no, you're looking at it all wrong.
Okay.
Every single promotion, whether you're Limitless or Chaotic or Beyond or APW or Top Rope or RWA or all the promotions I just mentioned.
Right.
Everybody got to start at square one again.
Exactly.
Which... a lot of times when you hear that phrase, oh man, I got to start at square one, it always comes off as a negative.
Right.
But the truth is like, okay, we all get to start at the starting line now.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of wrestling promotions, and they do this unintentionally, and some do it intentionally, but most of them do it unintentionally. I think it's just our nature. We're trying to compete.
Right.
We're all trying to be the best.
Yeah.
And I think what it really translates to, I think what everyone's really trying to do is we want to put on the best product for our audience. At least in my opinion, is I want to put on the best product I can so that the people that bought their tickets like it.
Right.
And if other people like it too, and other people put us above this or below or whatever, that's completely up to them. It doesn't matter.
Right.
As long as all of us pay our bills, all the wrestlers are happy and healthy, and we get to put on these wonderful shows. And there's a lot of wrestling in New England.
A lot.
Especially around this time of year. I call it tax return wrestling.
Bingo.
Everybody gets a nice tax return and thinks they're a promoter.
Yes, they do.
And it's okay because they usually stick around for one show.
Yep. And lose money.
But here's the thing, like from the business aspect, it's like, great, another promotion. We gotta work around and we gotta this and that. But in reality, it's just like they're gonna go do this thing that they probably always wanted to do.
Yep.
All power to them.
Yep. But they're gonna be one and done.
Yeah, you most of the time, yes. And honestly, and I hate to say this because it's gonna make me sound like I'm full of crap, but I want everyone to succeed.
Why not? Why wouldn't you though? Because if everyone's succeeding, that means you're succeeding. So
I would like to believe I'm a part of everyone.
Right, that's what I mean. Exactly, though, right? So of course you want to. I feel the same way. I don't want to see anybody fail in wrestling.
No,
Not even if Todd Soper was still right. I would want him to have packed houses. I would.
Yeah.
Because it gives everybody a chance to work.
And that's the thing. I never care if I like you or dislike you, because everybody's going to have, everyone is going to have a disagreement or squabble with one another. Yep. But in the end, as long as we're all doing good business and we're doing right by the people that work for us, who cares?
Right. Yeah.
I was in therapy for a while to find ways to handle these random things. And like I said earlier about being a creative and how nothing's ever done, it also means everything that I do, I scrutinize more than anybody else watching.
That's the hardest thing I know what you mean, because it's tough because you want to do better on everything, no matter what. Like when you're saying like a perfectionist kind of.
Yeah. It was always a problem. It took a lot of time and money to fix it.
Yep.
And thankfully, I wake up every morning knowing that what I'm doing is at least good.
Yep.
And nobody's opinion that I care about is calling it bad. So, okay, cool. I'll just keep moving on. Because what were we saying before we started? Sometimes success breeds contempt.
Yes.
But I'll go a step further because once again, in my mind, I don't despite how it might look from the outside, I don't consider it success, like fully successful. Like when you look at somebody who's like, oh, he's a success or she's a success. Like, how do you grade that? I don't know. That's objective. Everything's objective and everything's an opinion. But whenever I make that comment, like success breeds contempt, because the better you do, the more people, for whatever reason, there are some people out there, whether they're on your team, which is ridiculous and it really hurts, or they're not and they're just watching from afar, they just begin to dislike you, which brings me to the addendum to that phrase, which is simply not failing breeds contempt. Because there are people that are out there, whether it's me, whether it's you, or whether it's you, I don't know which one we're on. There are people that may be watching you from afar that wanted to do the things that you're actually doing. And the mere fact, and it has nothing to do with you, the mere fact that you haven't failed is enough to upset those people. The hardest part about dealing with that, and this might sound, I don't know if this is going to sound pretentious or if that's the word for it, but wrestlers, much like anybody, any minor celebrity or celebrity, we're all public figures.
Yes.
Because we're all out there. And whether we're wrestling in front of 10 people or 100 or 300 or whatever, we're still considered public figures. There are still kids that come to the shows and will remember us when they're adults because they saw us as kids and like, oh my God, that guy was larger than life. And it had nothing to do with his diet. But like simply not failing is enough to upset people. And as a public figure, you need to be able to let that roll off your back. Yes. We've talked about that. That I've learned, like just listening to you, because I'm the type of guy, like, people may not believe this, but I'm a hothead sometimes. I can go from being calm to really upset quickly. And I'm trying to work on that. I've been working on it for a couple of years now. And I'm so much better than I used to be. But I like hearing it from guys like you that say, oh, this guy, did this, saying that, and I just let it roll right off my back. And I need to hear that from people sometimes to help me. But here's another part of that. Even if letting it roll off your back only applies to your public persona, because there are going to be times that you're going to see stuff like people making comments or, it's very seldom in your face. But in your face, it's even funnier because usually they're within striking distance. But, and they probably had a little liquor. They probably overserved themselves a little bit at the VFW. But, usually, I end up seeing everything. I'm the kind of person that if I was more famous than I was, I'd Google myself. I haven't Googled myself yet. That's not a euphemism for anything else either. That's a given. But no, I'm the kind of person that would probably Google myself to see what's being said. And, when I was younger, I did a lot of stupid stuff. We all definitely did. I would come, I would come on a show like this
Yeah.
that like anybody can see,
Right.
and say stuff about people that I haven't met. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like young stupidity. And now that I'm, rocketing towards 40, it's like, unless I really want a problem, I'm not going to talk about anybody. And I also don't want a problem.
Right.
I love confrontation in some respects, but not all the time.
No, but you learn from that too. You don't want to be like that person that's being a disrespectful guy. You've always, as long as I've known you, it's only been a couple years,
Yep.
that you've always been the same type of guy. Again, people say stuff.
Yeah.
And I told you off air, I take my relationship with someone as my relationship, not his with this guy who don't like him.
Right.
I can be friends with both guys and have no problem.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And in some instances, we've had the same experience with the same person. So it's like, okay, we can actually, relate on that. But no, it's just the biggest, and if I could offer any bit of advice
Yes.
to anybody watching,
Give the advice.
if you are the type of person that responds to anything on social media, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or whatever, if somebody says something you don't like, walk away from it.
Yes.
You're not gonna change their opinion. You're not gonna change their mind. If it'll make you feel better, I know it's done. I know it's made me feel better in the past and it's almost unintentional at this point.
Right.
I'll see something I don't like. Usually it pertains to something close to me. I'm not like, I know there's a lot going on in the world today.
Yes.
Can't comment on it. I don't know.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know?
Right.
But if you're talking about something close to me, like a friend or another wrestler or even me,
Yep.
there are sometimes, if it'll make you feel better, go to type out that angry response, read
Right.
it back, and then delete it and just go about your day. Because there's no sense in even getting involved.
Right.
Because 9 times out of 10, anybody who says anything bad about you, it's because they have a problem with their own life. And the second you decide to respond to them, they win.
Right.
So don't respond to anything.
Yep.
There were a handful of times in the last 2 years, and it was pretty dicey
Right.
on social media in the wrestling business in the last couple years. And I had a few, a few rocks slung in my direction, and they never got a response from me.
That's the way to do it.
And the best part about it was, later on, in some cases, those people came to me and were just like, hey man, it was unprofessional. I was wrong. I'm sorry. And I'm just
Nice.
like, and that would have never happened
Right.
if I had thrown the rocks back.
Exactly. You're right.
Because I'm not saying take every shot on the chin and don't do
right.
anything
I
about
understand what
it.
you're saying, though.
But what I am saying is, just because they're fighting with you doesn't mean you're fighting with them. Just keep walking.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing something that's working.
Right.
So, like, if
Right.
anybody came along and were just like, the trading cards are crap or the toys are crap, which I've heard both for some
they're
reason.
not.
Or the proving ground is crap.
Nope.
Whatever, it's just like, okay, that is your opinion.
Right.
You have the right to it, but I also have the right to completely ignore you and keep doing well.
That's right.
So, don't sell it, as they say. Just don't respond. Just move about your day. Like, look at that stuff, go, I disagree. You don't have to tell them.
Right.
They don't care. It's not going to change their opinion.
Yeah. No, you sell the creeps and the jerks. And speaking of jerks, not you, Friday night in the main event, I saw one of the biggest jerks in New England independent wrestling right now. The victorious BRG, Brett Ryan Gosling, who I'm going to say it here now, is a jerk, but very, very talented, man. I mean it, man. Especially, he's good in the ring, really good in the ring, and he'll get better.
Yep.
But verbally, that kid's awesome.
I may have said this on a previous episode of the show, and if not, I'm okay with saying it again. Brett is a very unique talent. They call Kellen Thomas the Riot, but I've never almost gone to jail for the Riot Kellen Thomas.
Yeah.
Brett, on the other hand,
Yeah.
you want to talk about a heater. If you're wearing a baseball cap in the front row,
He nailed a bunch of people that night.
yeah.
And he has no problem doing it.
And sometimes those people have overserved themselves.
Yes.
There was one such altercation that I won't go into too many details, but let's put it this way. One of those fellas or a couple of those fellas, were a little upset with Mr. BRG for what he had done during his match and found their way into the locker room. And boy, did they learn from that mistake.
That's awesome. Good. Glad to hear that.
If you look,
Yeah.
all right.
If you're stupid enough to go into a wrestler's locker room looking to beat up somebody,
What have we learned? Don't get too close to the wrestlers.
yes.
No, they made the mistake of going into the locker room thinking they were going to square up with Brett, and Brett wasn't alone.
Right.
So once again, you're in the locker room. There's like, who are those guys? Do they know Brett? As soon as their intentions were known, it was done city
Right.
for those kids.
Right.
And just don't do it.
Yeah.
And just don't do it, because you may think you're going back there to settle the score with some little wrestler that you think you can take.
Yep.
But when you start getting beaten up by a locker room full of half-naked men who aren't afraid to put your face in the concrete, well,
Because you're going after one of their own.
Yeah.
A family member.
just because there are good guys and bad guys don't mean we all don't share the same locker room together. And
No
that's
doubt.
all I'm saying.
I just got to say, and he looks like a professional, too. I mean, you were there. The gear, everything.
And and I think, if I'm not mistaken, his Sweet Victory stuff
Yeah.
is brand new.
Yeah.
And Brett is, this is what I was going to say, Brett is on the very, like, every time I'm on this show, I think we talk about, whether it's off camera or on, we talk about, like, who do you think is the next
Yep.
guy to get signed?
Yep.
And I have a very short list of people I believe who it's going to be. And I don't think it'll be a couple more years.
Yeah.
But I think Brett's on that list.
I agree. I think Shannon Thomas is on that list,
Shannon
too.
Thomas
who
is
might
also
be at
on that list.
near the top
I
of that
think
list.
I think my top prospect right now is Alec Price.
Yep.
And-
I would definitely agree. Yeah, Alec, Channing, those guys are really good.
And nobody would have, and thanks to Bo for Channing and Alec, first of all.
Yep.
Bo Douglas, I don't think Bo Douglas gets enough credit
Bo's great.
for the work that he's done
Yep.
with some of these young students. Like, have you ever heard of Blow? It was
No.
out. It was basically you remember Glow from the 80s?
Yeah.
Well, it was kind of like that.
Okay.
And they ran at the AS 220 where Wrestle Party used to run. Sully Banger. I think is it the Beautiful Luscious Ladies of Wrestling? I apologize, ladies. It was basically an offshoot of, like, the idea was Glow, and
Right.
it was more spectacle than it was wrestling.
Okay.
But they were training and
Right.
and whatnot, and and then everything happened with the pandemic, and I'm sure that all slowed down.
Right.
But a lot of them went to Bo. So now Bo, like, for instance, we got to see Elle Valentine
Okay.
at NCW.
Yep.
And I had seen her before because I had done a calendar shoot with Chad Epic. He did a Christmas calendar shoot with a bunch of wrestlers, and some of the ladies from Blow were there.
Right.
And that's where I met her for the first time. Completely didn't remember me at all when I went up to her afterwards.
Well, that
but,
stinks. I hate that.
But no, it's fine. I was a Ghostbuster at the time. Hard
right.
to recognize now. But I what I saw was, I think I saw 2 or 3 minutes of her working in that
Right.
that ladies rumble that they had, and instantly I was just like, "You've been training with Bo?" And she said, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll call."
Right.
Because in this landscape, you got to be careful with the things that you say. I don't think this is all that controversial what
Okay.
I'm about to say, but the Proving Ground doesn't have a lot of women's wrestlers.
Okay.
And I say women's wrestlers, I respect them more as wrestlers than
Right.
women's wrestlers, but
Yep.
in order to tell the tale, I need to
Right.
be a little descriptive. So with women's wrestlers, Corinne Mink retired in December, had her last match with us.
She was going good, too.
She was.
She was.
She was one of my favorite women's wrestlers in the area, and she knew who she was,
Yep.
and she did an absolute great job with us, and our audience loved her. And all I hope is that for her to have a wonderful and happy life outside of this business, because I know the business is hard to leave.
Right.
Trust me.
Well, I'm sure. That's right. People that they retire, they come back.
Yes, and her husband still works for us. So, the hose B of the Hispanic mechanics.
Yep.
And jokingly, well, not jokingly, I'm pretty sure she's serious, but she was just like, "Hey, do you need any commentary people for your March show?" And I'm like, "You just retired. How are we supposed to miss you if you won't go away? So, but truth is,
Yeah.
I might need a commentator on March 19th. So
There
we
you go.
may or may not see Corinne Mink on March 19th, but just, no guarantees at the
I
moment.
remember the first time I saw her, I went to a New England All-Star show, and maybe you can explain this, but she came out with like a piece of cake or a pie.
Yeah, she was a Golden Girl.
See,
Yeah.
just going to the one show, you couldn't
Cheesecake.
figure it out.
Cheesecake.
It was, yes.
Because now I'm not the hugest fan of the Golden Girls. Imagine it's 1942. No, the sky's full of planes. No, but she was doing the Golden Girl for a while.
That's what that was.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, and it worked out. And then she decided to make a change to something that I feel was more comfortable for her because she was a high school athlete.
Okay.
I believe she was a discus thrower.
Oh, wow.
And she tomboy.
Right.
Would be the best way to describe her. Tomboy through and through, and she came up with the legit Haas character, which was basically like less girly, more I could beat up anybody.
Yep.
And once again, another thing that might be met with some criticism.
Bring it on.
For the proving ground, I made a decision at one point. Nothing official. I'd obviously go back on this in a second. But
Okay.
one of the things I always said was, I don't want to do ladies wrestling. I want to do intergender wrestling.
Okay.
Which it's funny you say that, Todd.
It has a niche?
It's pretty big. It's not just for that. Like
Right.
I'm not a dummy. I realize that anytime I post a video on Facebook or YouTube that has a woman in it at all, is going to do better views.
Right.
Because of, I'm not.
More men are watching wrestling.
Yes, and I'm not discrediting any of the women in those matches, but there are a lot of creeps that spend time on the internet.
There's no doubt.
But
You mean like watching Mandy Leon matches?
I guess.
Uh-oh.
You're canceled. So, no. So, like, I preferred the intergender matches because I'm a big fan of like the harder hitting and I don't want to say strong style. That paints a different picture. But like, women's wrestlers are pretty much trained from day one that when you're in there with a guy,
To wrestle
you'd
like a
better
guy.
make sure you're registering with the shots.
Right.
And people like Delilah Hayden, who is probably
Who I got to see, got a hug Friday night.
who is probably one of the hardest hitters that I've ever booked on one of my shows. So it's like, I like that kind of style.
Right.
So Corinne Mink fit that mold perfectly. And Delilah Hayden can fit that mold. And like I said, Ellie Valentine can fit that mold. And Isana fit that mold.
No doubt.
But like I always liked the idea. I think if I'm not mistaken, in the history of the Proving Ground, we've had two or three woman versus woman matches.
Really?
Yeah, and it was mostly because we only had one or two women at any time.
Right.
The first one was Delilah Hayden versus Kennedy Copeland.
Okay. Wow.
And
Is she still done right now? Like
Kennedy?
Yeah, she's still going.
Yeah.
Because I thought she got hurt a while ago. I wasn't sure what happened to her.
She might have. She talks about a lot of this stuff in
She's
public.
good, dude.
She talks about a lot of the issues in public.
Yeah.
So I don't need to tell that story. I'm sure you can find it if you want to.
Right.
But she took some time off for herself a couple years back, but she has been absolutely blowing up lately.
That's awesome. 'Cause
Not
I
to
know
me-
she's talented.
in the deathmatch circuit.
Oh, no kidding.
So it's just like, hey, if I knew I could book you for that,
Right.
no.
Well, the rules. You can't have a death match in Massachusetts. Am I correct on that?
I don't think that's a rule.
Because I remember asking. I talked to Demento one time.
Demento. What constitutes a death match?
That's true too. I wouldn't know because I'm not in the business.
Remember, the Texas death match doesn't require actual death.
Right.
So
Or being in Texas.
now, for instance, my insurance policy doesn't allow any shows with fire or glass. But doesn't say anything about barbed wire or tables or chairs or whatever. I think there's a lot of wrestling deathmatch aficionados who would probably tell you that unless there were, thumbtacks and glass and the syringes with the HIV virus in the syringes sorry, my cornet came out just there. They don't think it's a death match unless, and it's like, honestly, you can call anything a death match.
Right.
So, but anyway, Not that it matters because we're not going to do any death matches.
Yeah, no death matches.
But we've been known to have a street fight or two.
Nice,
so,
nice.
You know. But no, when Kennedy first came to us, she came during the second year of our existence when we were running shows. APW had a training building in not Salisbury. Yeah, Salisbury.
Okay.
Yeah, it was right behind the Cinemagic, and it
Oh,
was
all
just
right,
a
yeah.
little hole in the wall. And she got brought along for a show once, and I had her back, for a bit, and
Right.
then I forget what happened. I don't think it had anything to do with PG or me or anything like that, but I think something happened, and then she just, we stopped having her around all the time. So,
Right.
But
started getting booked other places
absolutely,
too.
especially now. Like,
Yeah.
I've messaged her
I
a
didn't
time
know.
or two before, and I'm just like, hey, are you available? And she's like, no, I'm booked solid. I'm like, good for you.
That's awesome. I heard you brought up Jim Cornette a minute ago, and I know you like music. You love music like I do, and you play music.
Yeah.
How come you haven't submitted a song to the drive-thru? I listen every week.
How
How come?
Believe it or not, I don't listen to Corny's podcast.
You don't?
No, because I like not getting mad in my own car.
I love Cornette.
I love Cornette, but Cornette fits a very specific spot in my heart, and it's like the show Doctor Who.
Yes.
I got turned on to Doctor Who when I was dating this girl who would be my fiance for a short period of time. But she introduced me to Doctor Who, and I started watching the newer version of the
Yep.
show from 9 forward and all. And I really enjoyed the storytelling, and episodes would be so provocative, and make me cry sitting there. Sometimes what they would talk about, it would get me. It was such a well-written show.
Right.
And it got to a point where I had to be in a certain place emotionally
Yep.
to be able to even consider watching the show.
Right.
So there are, like, for anybody at home watching who actually know about Doctor Who, I think I got 6 episodes into Matt Smith's run, and that's where I left off. So
Yeah.
that's years ago. And
Right.
that's 2 or 3 doctors ago now,
Dude, that show's been on for so long.
since the 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a long run. Speaking of long, I want to go back to Friday night show.
Yeah.
At Northeast Championship Wrestling, which was my first time being there. And I was small venue, great show, great crowd,
Oh, it was jam-packed.
packed.
Yeah.
I would think they probably should be looking for bigger buildings, maybe down the line.
Well, in my experience with NCW, like Friday night, I wouldn't call it an anomaly because it's not like they don't sell well.
Okay.
It's just, I think Friday was the perfect storm of there weren't too many other wrestling promotions running.
Very true.
Which is always a common
Yeah.
issue. And they run on Fridays, which can either
Yes.
be a good thing or a bad thing.
Right.
Because I ran one show on a Friday and I'm like, never again.
I love Friday shows. That's just me.
I ran a show and like you get to start a little bit later and you don't want to overdo it with the time.
Right.
Like I usually like to start at 7. On a Friday show, you kind of want to start at 7:30 because
Right.
if people are working the 9 to 5, they get out at 5 o'clock.
right.
They can go get their kids and then we have, all right, Marge, pack up the kids.
do
We're
it.
going to the Centrum.
A lot of drinkers at that show.
Yes, the bar always does well. It's like, are you guys going to the bar? And they're like, we are the bar. And I'm like, all right, perfect. They're the exact kind of fit. Buy the merchandise.
No, but it was a great show. I enjoyed it very much. I got to meet John real quick.
Yes.
JC.
Yep.
But some of the guys, I mean, I really think the show from top to bottom was great. I really enjoyed the 10-man match. I thought there was a lot of comedy in there and stuff too.
And there were a lot of unknown elements in that match.
Yeah.
Like there was what'd you say is it Adam
yeah.
Academia?
Yes, yeah.
Brand new. I think I talked to him afterwards. I said I asked him
Wrestled
how many
at
matches.
APW, I think, in the Battle Royal once.
Yeah.
At least that's all I
asked
know.
him, I said, how many matches have you had? He said 10. And I was just like, not bad for 10.
He's a nice kid.
Nice guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and once again, somebody who's training up
And I didn't know that the hoods were booked on the show, so I was pretty excited when I saw them come out. I always enjoy seeing Davey and Chris, good workers.
Listen, I don't know if you know this, Leo, but if it'll get you to one of my shows, the hoods work for me too.
Oh, I told you. Unfortunately, as you just said a few minutes ago,
No,
lot of
this guy's gushing about NCW. What a great show. Isn't that a good show? Oh, man, that show was great. And then I remind him, hey, you haven't been to a PG show,
Which
and
is
suddenly
true.
he's gone. Turns around.
Which is true. And I'm going to get there, but unfortunately, I can't make that one because there's so many shows running. I'm actually going to be doing my concessions at two different
APW,
places.
right?
No, she's doing APW.
Okay.
I'm going to Barica.
Ah, yes.
So we got to be, and she didn't want to do it right away, but I'm like, listen, I only got double booked because APW moved their show. It was supposed to be the 12th.
Look at you.
So
Look at you. How many people have called you a mark and you're getting more bookings than they are? Well.
Oh, listen, I got to say this, okay? This is from the show the other night.
Yeah.
And I was just...
Oh, of course it is.
No, but I was just joking around. Guy Derek Nix. I've never seen him before.
Dylan
Nix.
yes.
See? That's how much I know of him.
That's how much you've never seen him before.
Right. So I was just joking. They're in the ring. They announce him, and I just said, who? And he looked at me, and he said, who? And Dave Forty comes over and goes, I bet you more people know you than him. And I said, that's not very nice, Dave. And that's not because he's fairly new.
That's not very nice, despite how true it is.
Is he fairly new, right?
Yeah, he's been around for probably a little over a year.
That's awesome. But I was just busting his chops, having fun.
Hey, I don't know if you know this, but at NCW, you don't work there. You're allowed to be a fan.
Right.
When I do it, that's a problem. I'm
Right.
sitting at the commentary desk.
But I seen you at one point. You got up and got mad. I can't remember what it was for, though. Was it for the PRG match? You stood up and were like, what? What was the thing that got changed? Didn't something get changed?
Something happened. Usually,
Well, obviously, right? Because we're trying to figure out what it is.
Well, there's two things I can think of, but
Okay.
I don't know if they're the same thing. Brett, of course, was getting his usual amazing amount of heat.
Oh, unbelievable.
And somebody stood up to him, and despite having security that night, which should be an occurrence, rolling forward,
especially with PRG.
every time I see Brett come to the ring and I see him messing around with people in the audience, I always have to kind of keep my guard up because I'm out there.
Yeah.
And sometimes, all right, so on a regular night, it's, I don't know if I'm telling tales out of school with this, but heels come out first.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just something. We can go into the milieu of the wrestling business, but let's not. The heels come out first, which means here comes the heel. He's trying to get heat. In the ring, you've got a referee. Now, not taking anything away from the referees, but most of our referees are not really fighters. I'm not either. I'm just big.
Right. Well, you do have one former wrestler. Oh, no, but didn't Ben wrestle before, too?
Ben?
Yeah.
Which one?
Big Ben, the referee.
Referee?
How do you say
Nick.
No.
His son's name
Ben,
is Ben.
yeah. I think I called him Ben the other night. Like an
that's
idiot
great.
I am.
That's
That's
great.
just awesome.
But the long and short of it is there's not a lot. If there's no security, it's just Dallas McCarthy,
right.
who could open a buggy whip factory with those arms of his. Referee, who's not really necessarily. You know what? This would be a perfect time to say this.
He's on next week.
I know he is. Craig? Yeah.
Yep.
No.
Great guy.
This is a perfect time to say this because it's really important.
Yep.
There are very few referees that I could say without a shadow of a doubt could assist physically in an altercation. There's only one that I can think of, and he's gone now. Jeremy Bell. Jeremy,
He was loved by everybody.
yeah. Jeremy was really important.
Right.
And I know it's a wicked offshoot of the story and everything, but it's just like Jeremy was probably, he was a guy that took, I'm not going to swear, Dick, I promise. He took no crap from anybody.
Right.
If you didn't kick out at 3, it was 3.
Right.
And no matter how much you yelled at him in the locker room about it, he would yell right back in your face and be like, if you really want to take this outside, we can.
Right. Wow.
He was a man's man.
Yep.
And running shows without him it's never going to be the same again.
Right. I'm sorry for that, man. Because like I said, I didn't know Jeremy, but I saw the outpouring of love for that kid.
It was amazing.
Was amazing, Todd. It was amazing.
I hope it's funny. Jeremy and I had a very similar sense of humor.
Yeah.
At NRG, we did a 10-bell salute for him. In fact, we'll be doing one on March 19th, and then they did one the next day at RWA.
Right.
And it's like so many. There's just such an outpouring of respect and love for Jeremy, and he would have appreciated this comment because it's a little morbid, but it's also kind of funny in that. Gosh, I hope when I die, people like me that much.
Right.
I wish people would like me that much while I'm here. But no, the NRG show that happened right after it was announced.
Yeah.
We were supposed to kick off the show with a celebration for Stephen Lust.
Yeah.
So we were going to decorate the ring with like streamers and all this party stuff. And we started doing it before we remembered there had to be a 10-bell salute. And I'm like, something in my heart says that Jeremy would appreciate the 10-bell being done with streamers and party effects. It'd just be like, this is mildly inappropriate. While somewhere he's just laughing. Right. No, he was a really good dude, and I'm gonna miss him, and I think we all are. If you ever had the chance to work with him, he was easy to work with. And you know what they say, referees only ever really get noticed when they screw up.
Yes.
And Jeremy, he added to every match he refereed in, even if you didn't even notice he was there.
Right.
And that's something.
Yeah.
And like I said, no disrespect to any of our other referees in New England. I think they'd all be able to step back and look at what I'm saying and go, you know what, he's right.
Right.
Jeremy was a good guy. And not just because he's gone.
Right.
He was the kind of guy that would exchange the I love yous with me at every show.
Nice.
Because that was the one thing I said. It was so weird. And let me just finish the quick thing with the Brett thing. Essentially what I was saying was anytime Brett's out there, he's kind of alone out there when it comes to able-bodied people to get into a fight with, and I'm big enough that I can actually stop something if it happens. And then the other reason I might have stood up is because Osiris was responsible for putting my broadcast partner on the shelf forever.
It was Osiris.
Yeah.
Because it was...
Once he said he retired Atlee Green, Atlee's the reason I'm in the business.
Yes.
And that really upset me. So
I hadn't seen Osiris in a long time.
If you keep coming to NCW shows, don't be surprised if I handle that at some point.
All right.
But something I said at my last show, now that we can deviate back to the sadness.
Right.
We kicked off the last show in January, the Rumble, with I sat in the ring and I did a 10-bell. Because as it is in the wrestling business, it's tradition to ring the bell. And
absolutely.
At that time, it was Butcher Hughes and Jimmy Rave.
Yeah.
Who
two guys I know both personally.
Some people, that's the thing. Some people and I put Corporal Kirshner as well.
Yep.
And some people looked at the Jimmy and Corporal Kirshner and they looked just like, why would you put them up there? There's, why don't you stay local or whatever? Right. And I'm just like, there were people in my locker room that Jimmy Rave had a lot to do with.
Yeah.
And Corporal Kirshner, I loved Leatherface. What can I say? And I did Leatherface for a little while.
Oh, cool.
Just because I saw his example.
Right, right.
And then on the bottom of the screen, it was the two people that ran the print shop that I used to go to. I saw them in the afternoon. They were dead by the evening. And I still have no idea what happened.
Right. Wow.
And I don't want to speculate because there's a lot of terrible things you can speculate.
Oh, yeah?
But the police said there was no foul play, and they're just gone. 13-year-old kid, both of her parents gone.
I couldn't even imagine.
So I'll just announce it now. I'm sure I'll bring it up later on. Our April show, whenever we do the Elks Lodge in Beverly, we always do it for a charity. This time, all proceeds for that show, all profits made are going to go to assist with that 13-year-old girl.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah,
It's sad.
It's just sad. And then there were a couple of other people that had passed on the screen. And the one thing that I said, and keep in mind, before I finish this story, I'm not taking credit for this phrase. I'm not taking credit for people using this phrase because I heard it somewhere first.
Right.
But I sat in the ring, and before I rang the bell, I said, I told the audience that I loved them, which is what I always do, because it's just like, first of all, thank you, because, the money you're spending here is keeping me and the other wrestlers paid.
Right.
And, and you're coming out to have a good night and enjoy a show, and we're here to give it to you, and we wouldn't put our, if we're going to put our bodies on the line for you, there's love there.
Right. Absolutely.
So whether you care back or not, I love you. Thank you for being here. And then I stopped and I just went, we need to normalize this. We need to normalize telling the people in our life that we love them at whenever you say goodbye to somebody, when you leave them at night or on the phone or whatever, just let them know, because the one thing the one thing that happens when somebody passes away is they sit back and they think to themselves, ah, damn, I don't get to see them again. I wish I could get one more hug. I wish I could have said I love you one more time. It's all these things.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever said this on the show. I know that's, by the way, every time I say that, take a drink.
There you go. We had a drinking game before.
I think so. I forget what the phrase was, but
Me too,
I said it a lot.
You did say it a lot that day.
When my dad died,
Yeah.
I was there. His last words to me were, "I love you too." When he passed, I was there.
Yeah.
I had everything. I had everything that people lament about not having. I wasn't there when he died. I didn't get to say I love you. I didn't get a hug.
Right.
Blah, 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 right, all that stuff.
You got all of it.
I got all of that. Let me tell you right now. Still isn't good enough.
No. You know something, Todd? You're right, because my brother John, my best friend Michael Thorne died 27 years ago. And the minute he died, I started telling everybody that I loved him. My best friend Joe, I remember calling him up and telling him what happened to he only knew my other friend. My best friend Joe only knew of Michael, knew who he was. Yeah. But he knew how much it hurt me. And I told him right away, I said, Michael died and I love you, man.
Yeah.
And I never... that's all we ever, that's how we end all our conversations. I'll talk to you later, love you, all the time. And I have no problem saying it. If I love you, I'll tell you.
And there are some people that, they were raised differently, and maybe those words don't come across, or maybe those words don't mean anything to them anymore.
Right.
But when I sat in the ring that night and I said, normalize telling people that in your life that you love them, and also to anybody, I didn't say this at the show, but I'll say it now, to anybody that is at home and they're hurting over a lost loved one.
Right.
Whether it's a family member, a friend, a colleague.
And a pet.
A pet.
It could be a pet.
Hey,
I cried when one of my guinea pigs died, man.
Listen, I don't care what anybody says. There are some people that actually what are you crying over a cat or a dog for? Are you kidding?
Exactly. No doubt.
They're a part of your everyday life, of course.
Exactly.
So
I cry for when my friend's dog dies because I love their dog.
Well, yeah, because when you're hanging out with your friends and their dog, that's your dog.
Yeah.
He certainly humps his leg like he's your dog.
They sure like to.
But no, everybody out there who's hurting and mourning and will do so forever.
Yeah.
Just remember, even if you got those things that you're lamenting about, I can tell you from experience that it wouldn't be good enough.
Right.
Allow yourself to heal and move forward. Nice. Don't let that be don't ruin your life on the fact that you didn't get to utter words, because you can always do it now.
Right.
And they may not be here anymore, but it's more for you than anything else.
Well,
so I sat in the ring, I rang the bell, and I ended up posting the video separate of the show. The show still hasn't come out, but I posted that clip, and people I didn't know, because I tagged everybody that I talked about in the video. People I didn't know were sharing it. Nice. And all of, anybody who wrote anything in the text with the video was, tell the people that you love them. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm not going to take credit for that, obviously, because I'd be wicked lame. But I'm just glad that somebody watched that, anybody, got that message and thought it was a good one.
Nice.
That's what mattered.
I'll tell you, I went to see Blue October not that long ago.
Yeah, I know, you love that. I love that.
I love that band, right? And Justin's an incredible guy. I got to ask him a question. We did the meet and greet, I asked him how long he'd been sober and stuff. And but when he tells his fans, I love you, I believe it. I believe this guy. Yeah. You know what I mean? He's just an incredible performer, songwriter, everything. You're right. I love the guy. I'm going to see him. I actually turned Sonny onto him. Sonny loves this band. I took him with me to see the show.
Yeah.
And the next day he hit me up after thanking me that night on the ride home. The next day he hit me up again saying, thank you for turning me on to these guys. These guys are just incredible. I'm surprised that I think they're right up your alley.
I've seen videos that anytime I see that name, I always think of you, and it's always like, oh, he posted it, that's why.
Yeah. Probably.
One of my favorite musicians, we never talk about music on the show. One of my favorite musicians, he's actually the inspiration for all the music that I do, was a guy by the name of Justin Curry. Justin Curry was the bass player and songwriter for a band called Delamitri back in the 90s. And Delamitri had one huge hit over here. It was called Roll to Me.
Okay.
I'm not going to sing it on the show. You can look it up. But it was a huge hit. You can hear it in your dentist office every time you go. It was just one of those songs. Like he's done interviews and he's just like, I'm still making money on that song that I wrote 25 years ago. I was always impressed by his music. I loved his music. His music is good for when you're hurting.
Yeah.
And it's not that he's writing, and he's not writing sad songs, but he's writing like relatable songs about stuff that you've been through. And it's like
that's Blue October too.
Yeah. If I ever loved you, shouldn't I be crying?
Wow.
Like where the hell did that come from?
Right.
So, my dad and I. So this was back when my dad was still around, and he turned me on to this music, and he was like, Justin's playing at the Roxy in Boston. I said, okay, let's absolutely go.
Right.
Because he's from Europe, so he's not really around here all that often. The American tour is slim at best.
Right.
And we decide rather than driving into Boston, we take the train and then we take a cab from the train station to the building. We pull up and he's outside.
Wow.
And I'm pretty sure I mustered out, thank you.
Yep.
Huge fan. Thank you very much. And nice guy, offered to carry in his gear. And he was just like, no, everything's fine. Because when he was doing his performances, the sound system's already there.
Right.
He just shows up with a guitar and plugs in.
Right.
And that was the first night that I realized, oh, this is what an acoustic show looks like.
Right.
And then I haven't stopped doing them.
Nice.
So yeah, I just did. That probably was 2011. I had my first gig in 2012 with my drummer Kenny Nessel.
Yeah.
Adam's brother.
Yep.
And we have been. I mean, depression took the music away from me for a very long time.
Okay.
And it still hasn't come back all the way yet.
Right.
But whenever we get together, we still play the state fair. We still, we do haunted happenings in Salem every year. So we're always doing cool stuff when we get together. But we're still doing it, and it's because I had that inspiration from that guy, and I got to meet him, and he wasn't a dick.
Right.
That's not a curse. Your own name, right? Okay. He wasn't. He told us not to swear on this show.
And I did.
We got like 39 seconds.
Yeah, so I still want you to plug your show, too.
Oh, yes, of course.
One more time.
Saturday, March 19th at the Peabody Knights of Columbus, the Proving Ground returns for Super Fight, Montero versus Leader Part 2. We also have the DLC Championship on the line. Foxy Calvin Campbell against Pimp Daddy Apple Cinnamon. We got the tag team titles on the line. We had to replace the challengers because they couldn't make the show, so we're going to run it back. The Hispanic Mechanics take on Security Inc. in a street fight.
Nice.
And the debut of Kellen Thomas, the return of Anthony Green. You can get all the stuff you need from our social media accounts. You can find them all at provinggroundbrand.com. And if you want to buy tickets, go to provinggroundstore.com. See, we're very alliterative with our .coms.
Awesome. Todd, thank you for coming on, man, and we'll do this again.
man.
I like having you on.
I love you.
Love you.
And I love all of you too.
I love all the viewers. Thank you. Peace. Hi, guys. I hope you're enjoying the show. Listen, I could use a little help to grow my YouTube channel. So if you could please like, share, and subscribe. That's most importantly, subscribe. Send me a direct message, and I'll give you a shout out here on the show. My YouTube channel is real simple. It's just my name, Leo Connors. Thanks in advance. Peace.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.